Okay, grade seven. Today we're going to talk about another reading strategy called Notice and Note. And I want you to keep using your Cornell notes. But while you're reading, if you can start noticing signposts, that is really going to help you understand the text much better and remember it and be able to do your Cornell notes as well. Okay, so things you want to look for: extreme or absolute language. I will explain these in a minute. Contrasts and contradictions, quoted words, word gaps, numbers and statistics, and you will find this all in nonfiction. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about fiction because we are trying to help you better understand the text that you need for your combined science, language, lit, interdisciplinary unit. Okay, so the video is going to stop and ask you to write down this chart because this is, excuse me, how you are going to annotate your text. So, contrasts and contradictions. So, contrasts, if you see words like but, that is alerting you to the author is probably giving you a contrast or something that is the opposite, a contradiction. So if you actually, this was one of our Greek and Latin words, so you should know what a contradiction is. So if somebody says something, but someone else contradicts them or says the opposite, a contradiction, think of it more as like you expect one thing and you get the opposite. Okay. And think of the example. I think Greek and Latin, it was someone says that math is the best subject, and someone contradicts and says, no, 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 that's not true. Science is the best subject, or whatever. So you are disagreeing with them, but also it can be something quite unexpected as well. Extreme or absolute language. So contrast, contradictions. Contrast means opposite. Contradictions, something that someone has disagreed with or you are expecting the opposite of. Extreme, absolute language, think of words like never, always. If you see words like that, you need to circle them, you need to notice them because good writers often will not use extreme or absolute language because it is showing bias. Numbers, statistics, these are very important when you're reading nonfiction. Quoted words, you need to ask yourself who is the expert, why are they being quoted, what is being quoted, and word gaps. And this is where your Greek and Latin is going to come in very handy. So if you see a word you don't know, ask yourself, can I break it down? Do I see anything that might be a Greek or Latin root word? Okay. Is this specialized language that an expert in a field might use? And obviously, if you are able to look it up, you should do so. So that's what word gaps means. Okay, so three big questions when you're reading: what surprised me? What did the author think I already knew? What challenged, changed, or confirmed what I knew? So when you start reading about microplastics, I think the first article, I know it really surprised me. Um, so ask yourself by the time you finish this, what challenged you, what changed, and what confirmed what you already knew about microplastics. Okay, so contrast, contradictions. When you're reading and the author shows you a difference between what you know and what is happening in the text. So stop and ask yourself, what is this difference? Why does it matter? And this is where you should be taking notes in the margins. Okay, and I'm going to show you a way that you can annotate notes. The answer could help you see details that show the main idea, compare and contrast, understand the author's purpose, infer, Infer is like to come to a logical conclusion. Make a generalization. So if you're making a generalization, you're saying that all, for example, all teenagers are uh, rowdy. That would be a generalization, obviously an unfair one. And also, you want to notice cause and effect. When you're reading and you notice the author uses language that leaves no doubt, exaggerates, or pushes to the limit, so this is extreme, absolute language, stop and ask yourself, why does the author say it like this? The answer will tell you something about the author's point of view and purpose, and you might realize the author is exaggerating to make you think a certain way. And this is where we need to stop and ask ourselves about bias. Okay? So if they're saying that all teenagers are lazy, for example, which of course we know isn't true, then what is their bias? Why are they saying this? And keep in mind that most of the time, good writing is not going to use absolute language. So that means you also need to be aware of this in your writing as well. When you're reading and you notice specific numbers, number words, or amounts, stop and ask yourself, why did the author use those numbers or amounts? The answer might help you come to a conclusion, make a comparison, see the details, infer, find facts, or recognize evidence. Also ask yourself, do the numbers make sense with what you expected? Um, or are they surprising to you? When you're reading and you notice the author quoted a voice of authority, a personal perspective, or cited others' words, stop and ask yourself, why did the author quote or cite this person? This will help you think about the author's point of view, their purpose, their bias, or conclusions. So, are they trying to get you to think another way? Are they being very balanced and presenting both sides of the argument? But sometimes perhaps it's not appropriate to present the other side of the argument, perhaps when it comes to microplastics, okay? Unless we can present another side that says, hey, this is what we're doing to make the situation better. When you're reading and the author uses word or phrase you don't know, stop and this is word gap. Stop and ask yourself, do I know this word from someplace else? So that's where your Greek and Latin should come in handy. Okay. Does this seem like technical talk for experts? Can I find clues in the sentence to help me? So, most of the time, if you reread the sentence and the sentence that comes before and after, it's going to give you some pretty big clues. And of course, you should always look it up if you are able to. Okay, so just to review, so you've written this down now. So when you read, you are looking for contrasts, contradictions, extreme or absolute language, number and stats, quoted words, and word gaps.